Alrighty, this is the part 2 to our strategy and drive team meeting. This is the drive team portion of the meeting. Here you can see what we're going to go over. We're going to go over each of the roles in some detail of what the drive team roles are. Not only so if you are, for instance, the primary driver, you know what to expect, but also you know what to expect of the secondary driver and the drive coach and the human player and the tech. It's important for all you guys to know what each other's roles are. I'll also talk about some strategy things and what to do before, during, and after matches. And I have some general notes for a good drive team also at the end. All right, we're going to start our in-depth discussions with the drive coach. I already talked with Lana a bit about what being a drive coach means and how to do her job effectively, because I was a drive coach, just my own advice, but I'm going to go over here so everyone knows some of the general roles she has. The big ones being watching over everything in a match, aiding the drivers, and communicating. That's like the #1 goal. She can't touch the controllers for you. She can't throw the cargo for you. Like, she can't, climb into the field and fix the robot for you. Like, all she can do is communicate. So that is her job, but I hope she does it very well. I have high hopes for her. So what does this entail? This entails timekeeping. So what your drivers know that, oh, there's 45 seconds left in a match versus 10 seconds versus a minute 20. That is really helpful to know, especially when you're collecting cargo, shooting cargo, knowing when to climb. She's going to help direct the drivers. For instance, make sure, go and shoot in the high goal, or go and shoot in the low goal, or, drive away from that defender before you shoot, or come on guys, it's time to go climb. She's also going to help locate cargo. So when you run out of cargo, she can say, okay, there's one in that back corner, go drive over there. Or to your left, there's 2 blue cargo, go grab both of those. She'll also be watching for fouls. The rest will be flagging you. They'll point at a robot and flag when there's a foul, and they'll point at a robot, flag, and cross their arms in an X when it's a tech foul. She will be watching that. And if it happens to you, hopefully she knows why you're fouled and will tell you you're being fouled, and hopefully will tell you what to stop doing to not get fouls. If she doesn't know why you're getting fouled, she should still tell you that you're getting a foul, so you know and are aware of it in case you get more and maybe you need to just stop what you're doing. But she will be on the lookout for that. She will also be watching the general score and the RPs. If you're really close to RP, maybe you forgo the climbing and get that last cargo, or vice versa, you get the cargo instead of getting more, or get the climb instead of getting more cargo points. She's also going to be watching the score. If it's very close, she's definitely going to push you guys more. If you got a lot of comfort room, maybe go to climb 5 seconds early or 10 seconds early, just get out of the way. She'll be watching all that, hopefully. The drive coach will also be watching the opponents and your alliance members. The opponents, you could be watching this, maybe someone needs to be defended real quick. Maybe someone's broken, and it's good to know, oh, hey, that, bare metal is broken, don't worry, like, they'll be a bit easier now. Or, oh, someone's broken in our safe zone, go touch them and get a free climb. There's some things you can watch for and tell you guys. Similar with the alliance, if someone's really struggling with the defender and, you shot your last 2 balls, you're just waiting to climb, go push that defender away. Let your partner shoot those balls. Or, maybe your partner is not defending the right person, or they're really struggling, and maybe she needs to go over to them and tell them that they're getting fouls, or, they need, coach someone how to defend better, or tell them to defend the right person. This is a lot of stuff. And she might be delegating some of this. She might not get to all of this, especially for several matches. Please don't expect all of this from her for her first couple matches. But this is her goals, is the managing side of everything. So pretty much as a summary, if something isn't working, the drive coach will give them a new direction. This might be, okay, we got to start scoring high. Okay, we got to start scoring low. We need to defend. We need to counter defend. We need to go climb like now. We need to shuttle cargo to our partner because they can shoot really fast, but they're struggling to pick up the cargo or something. This is all drive coach roles. Again, I try to go through them very fairly fast because Alana's already talked to me about those, but this is what you should expect from your drive coach on a good day. One more thing I want to talk about is mentor drive coaches. So I alluded to them a bit last video. We talked about some teams tend to have mentor drive coaches, but what does that mean? That means that it is an adult who, at least for the teams I listed, 4488 and 2811, have been doing it for a lot of years. They're going to be very knowledgeable about FRC, very knowledgeable about the rules, the fouls, how to be a good drive coach. Like, they'll have a lot of experience. But I definitely value having a student drive coach much more than having a mentor drive coach. I think it is very important for the high school robotics team to be run by high schoolers. And I definitely commend you guys for having a student drive coach. All of this being said, while the mentor drive coaches have more experience, from my own experience of being a drive coach for 2 years, by the end of my 2 years, I would have considered myself a better drive coach than most of the mentor drive coaches. Not that you guys will get there, or that I'm expecting you to get there, or that I'm saying anything bad about mentor drive coaches. I'm just saying that I don't think you have to be a mentor with 7 years of experience to be a good drive coach. I think as long as you communicate well to your drivers and you win, you do everything to win the matches and you're watching everything and you're managing things, that you can be an excellent drive coach. So just know that they exist. Know that I commend you guys. I applaud you guys for not having one. And I wish you guys all luck talking to them in match strategy, because they have been there for 7 years and they're going to be a little more pushy and vocal because of it. Okay, now we're going to go to primary driver. The primary driver, their goals are to drive the robot, and they might have some mechanism they're controlling. I don't know what you guys are planning, but for example, they might be the one to push the shoot button, or they might, bring the intake down. They might push the climb button. Whatever they do, they will likely control 1 or 2 mechanisms, as well as drive the base of the robot, the chassis of the robot. The primary driver needs to be especially familiar with rules on pinning and safe zones, and if there's any sort of high-speed ramming rules, pretty much any rules where you're safe zones, for example, where you're driving around and you might get a foul just with your robot moving around. You also, again, need to know the difference between a foul and a tech foul, the point difference for that, the arm waving from the judges for that, the referees. The primary driver must also be very quick to adapt. You need to have some idea in your head of what you plan to do next, so you're not wasting time in the field. You don't want to shoot 2 cargo and then pause, turn over to drive coach. Where should my next ball be? They think about it for a little bit. They point you somewhere, then you drive over. First of all, they should already be telling you where your next ball will be, but even if they don't tell you, you should have an idea of what you might do next. All this to say, when in doubt, play a little bit of defense. It's a very open field this year. There's a lot of robots driving everywhere. If, Alana disappeared and you don't know what to do and you can't find a cargo nearby or whatever, go over to an opponent and bump them around, make them miss their shot. It takes 2 seconds to bump a robot when that could have been 30 seconds of picking up 2 balls, going over to the hub, lining up to shoot, and you could have stopped all that in 2 seconds. So I definitely say, when in doubt, play a little defense. Even if your goal is to just shoot and you're not an actual defender. The primary driver must also really know the limitations of your robot. How fast can you drive it in a controlled manner? Some robots just go slower than others. Some go really fast. Some go too fast and you're not actually controlling anymore. So definitely, know your top speed, give or take. Know, if you jerk to a stop, will you tip over? Are you perfectly fine? Will you skid a little bit? Everything from picking up cargo to driving and parking and lining up, all this should be some amount of muscle memory. I hope you guys get the driver practice so that this happens. If not, at least hold the Xbox controller and play around with it, and find a chassis of a robot and play around with driving it. And please tell the rest of the drive team if something is wrong. If your robot's jittering a lot because it's browning out, please tell people like, I'm not controlling the robot, or it's not driving how it's supposed to be. Also, I would recommend that you be familiar with driving both forwards and backwards, because you don't always need to turn all the way around to drive to the other side of the field. You can drive backwards if you're comfortable with that. So I would definitely, if you have extra driving practice time, I would definitely practice some of that. Okay, and then I have a little bit of defense notes for the primary driver also. First of all, this is a contact sport, but please never intentionally damage another robot. Not only is that like a lot of fouls and yellow cards and stuff, but that's not gracious. Like, that's not professional. That's not the way that FRC is meant to be played. Don't intentionally damage another robot. That's just mean. Defense is best played either when they're about to grab cargo or they're lining up to shoot. If you see them driving to a cargo and you push the cargo out of the way, now they got to drive even further to get it. Or, they're about to pick up a cargo and you bump their robot and you're wrestling with them. Now they can't pick up their cargo. Same with shooting, you don't necessarily need to defend them the entire time from driving with the cargo to the hub. But if you can watch while they're lining up and bump them a couple times to mess up their shot, that's gonna, that's a whole cycle gone. So that's a good time to defend them. Make sure that your mechanisms are up and out of the way. If you're driving around and your intake's hanging out and you're bashing your intake against the other robot, that's going to hurt. Mechanical is going to be very mad at you. This is not a good plan. And then, kind of like I said before, when in doubt, play a little bit of defense. You can't find another cargo, if your intake's broken, if you only have 10 seconds and you want to go climb, you don't have to climb early. You can do a little bit of defense. You have some options there. So this is a primary driver. Again, all of these things I'll be here for a Q&A. These are also all just my own Lizzie's guidelines of what she thinks a good drive team would look like from her own experience. You don't have to listen to any of what I say. This is your team, but this is what I would recommend for all these. Okay, and then we have the secondary driver. Their roles are usually controlling mechanisms of the robot. For example, they might control the intake when the intake's actually sucking up a ball, getting the shooter ramped up, getting the climber going. This depends on your guys' setup. The secondary driver is going to aid the primary driver and the drive coach in communication and some other things. We'll get back to that. Okay, so one of the big things about controlling your mechanisms is to protect your mechanisms. Again, if your driver shoots their two balls, they say, I'm right, I'm going to go play defense. You got to, bring your mechanisms inwards, protect them, and if for whatever reason it's not coming up or it's broken or something, make sure they know, oh, hey, our intake isn't coming back up, either use the backside of your robot or don't play defense, protect your robot. And so in times of downtime, either you're solely doing defense or you're lining up to shoot and you don't actually have any controls for that whole process or whatever, you should be helping the coach and your primary driver communicate. You really should get this lined out ahead of time and play a couple matches. If you don't like what you're doing, mix it around, add more roles, take away more roles. But some things that they might help for is they can help the driver line up to game pieces, because they're a lot closer to the glass. They could help if it's just kind of in a hard corner that the primary driver can't see very well. They can help say, no, go to the left, go to the right. They can also help with lining up too if they think, no, that's not quite right. They can also, glance around while they're not using their mechanisms and look for fouls from the refs. The primary driver should be mostly watching their own robot, but the secondary driver has a little bit of more leeway to look around and say, oh, well, ref is flagging someone. Is it our robot? Yes, no. Do we do anything differently? Yes, no. Are they counting down a pin? And then they also might, for example, help locate the next cargo. If the drive coach offshores some of that responsibility to them, again, a lot of this is about communication. You should be very good at communication. And your controls for your robot should be second nature so that you don't have to think about which button was it that lowered the intake. You should just know that, oh, it's the X button and just press it. And the roles of the secondary driver are going to vary year to year, both from the drive team composition and also just what mechanisms you have on your robot. For both the primary and the secondary driver, work with the programmers to make sure your controls are intuitive for you. I've been on programming. I've thought my controls seemed intuitive, but if the drivers say, I want these buttons reversed, or, I want this on the trigger instead of the A button or whatever, like, make sure that they know and make sure that they change it, because you need to be the most well-equipped you can to compete well. And if you're fumbling because the controls aren't what you expect, that's a really easy fix for the programmers. Okay, human players. The human players will usually enter game pieces into the field, and they might help out behind the alliance wall. This will vary from year to year, and they'll also vary depending on if you're in a station or if you're behind the alliance wall. And then it's also going to vary on the needs of each drive team, kind of how we talked about, if the drive coach is going to share some of the responsibilities or whatever. It just depends on what your drive team needs and wants. First off, the human player should definitely know the rules for touching cargo, like opponent cargo behind the wall. They should definitely know the rules about the purple plane. They should definitely know the rules about staying in your bounds, or in the alliance wall, you can wander as much as you want inside the alliance station. If you are in the stations with the cargo, there's a couple things you can do. First of all, everyone's been talking about maybe a bit of basketball during auto. If that's what you're doing, then do it. After autonomous, you're really only doing anything if people feed you balls and then you feed them back to them. I don't expect this to happen very much in a match, so you might end up getting, your role is going to be less attentive, or not attentive. Your role needs less focus. It's less demanding. That's the word I'm looking for. So you might find your attention wandering a little bit, drifting, but I would like you guys to be attentive, because if a robot's intake breaks and they really need to use your section, or you still have your ball from auto and someone wants it and they drive up to you, you got to watch and pay attention to that. Similarly, if you should talk with your own drivers and your partners about if you have cargo back there, if you want to throw it with the basketball, if you want to deliver it to a robot, if a robot pushes you a ball, should you immediately give it back to them or should you hold on to it? Consider these things. And then for the most part, like, enjoy the close-up view of the match. Like, I find the matches to be very fun, very engaging, very thrilling. So enjoy the match, enjoy the view of the match. If you're behind the line station, so you're with the rest of the drive team, you should be helping out wherever needed. Again, I mentioned a bunch of the roles of the drive coach. I might have a couple that I even missed, but these expectations should be set before every match of, I want the human player to be notifying me when we get to 20 seconds and we haven't climbed yet, or I want the human player to tell any alliance partner if they get a foul. They can really do whatever you need. In 2019, we had 2 different instances, I believe, where we went to climb on the hab, and because there was a ball in the way, we missed the hab because we weren't pushed up against the hab. This was very specific, and it only happened twice, but in 120 matches. But it was so stressful that before we climbed every match, our human player would run to the side of the field, look to see if there's a cargo there, and then give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That did save us once, I think. So it really depends on the year. So it really depends on the year, what the human player is doing and how they're helping the drive team. But if you're behind the alliance station, you should expect to be much more engaged in the match and engage with your partners, your team, and just help out wherever's needed. And you should set that up before each match. Okay, last role, technician. They don't help during the match, but they help before every match and after every match. They run through a checklist, and this checklist should be thorough, and they should be set for that year, and it should be done before every single match. Here I have a list of what might be on your checklist. I expect you have more than just this, but Some good examples are have a fresh, good quality battery in your robot before every match. Have all your wires plugged in and secure. Make sure your motors are doing all right. They're not overheating. This applies to after the match too. Make sure your mechanisms are functioning normally. If they're not, for example, your climber isn't working, your intake isn't working, tell the drive team, ideally before they plan their next match, that FYI, this isn't working. Plan your match accordingly. We will try to fix it beforehand, but if not, it's not going to work. Please tell them that. Make sure the bumpers are set to the right color, either red or blue. And then make sure the robot is configured, ready to put it onto the field, and then you can help them bring it onto the field when the time is ready. They can also offer some immediate aid to the robot right after a match. For example, they can cool some motors off. They can assess the damage a bit. Say fires, put the fires out. But they're kind of like they're the pre-match checklist, and they're the first aid response. So they should be very knowledgeable of all the robot mechanisms. They should also be very knowledgeable of places of frequent error or breaks. And they should also understand motor overheating, wiring, and battery charge and battery quality. Some of the stuff, yeah, they should definitely know all of this. Okay, so that's different roles and what you might expect. And I really want us to talk about this on Saturday, the 29th, in our Q&A session, because I think that would be very helpful for people. But I have a couple more more strategy type things. So before each match, we talked a bit about this in the previous strategy video, but before every match, before you're in queue even, you should meet up with your alliance partners. There should be at least one driver from every drive team or a dedicated strategy person. And even then, I would still recommend having a driver from every team at your meeting. Talk to everyone and kind of assess the capabilities of each partner robot. If someone says that they're broken or damaged, ask what happened. Or if your scouters say that they were broken or damaged, say, hey, what happened? How's your robot doing? Is it working? Do you need any help from us? Assess, can you do 2 cargo? Can you do 7 cargo? Can you climb? Figure out what everyone can do. Then you can bring out your clipboard and you can go over some auto paths and auto locations where you're going to start, go over climbing and end game, go over the general strategy of the match, who's shooting high, who's shooting low, if anyone, who's defending, if anyone. Also, please talk about the RPs, even if you're not going to get it at all. At least say, all right, we can't get 20 cargo, so we're not even going to worry about the rank point, but we're going to try to win. Make sure it's very clear. Or if you're we can probably do this, let's go for the RP. Either way, you should at least bring it up in the conversation during qualifications. And again, make sure all your partners and everyone on your drive team is comfortable and familiar with the game plan. After you've talked to everyone, and again, this should be before you're in queue rating, there should be several matches ahead of time. Get the robot ready for the match. Technician should help with that. You can always help him. Or, if you're on mechanical and it needs some quick tweaking or whatever, get it ready for the match, get it on your cart, line up for queue when indicated. I recommend if you're, a match ahead in queue, if you're waiting in queue to, talk to all the drivers on all the drive teams and just go over the strategy one more time. All right, just to clarify, people are starting here and here. We're going to climb at the end, and this is doing this. Anyone have any questions, comments, I think that's always good to do. And then, and now you get to put your robot on the field and put your driver station in your assigned station, and you're ready for the match. During the match, first off, the matches go very, very fast. You will learn this in your first practice match. You're going to have blinked and the match will already be halfway over. But stay calm. This will get better with time. Ask for help when needed. If you're the primary driver and you say, I don't know where to go, if you don't know that, please vocalize that. So your secondary driver, your human player, or your dive coach, preferably, or whoever, can help you out with that. That's one of the biggest takeaways from the slide, honestly. Another one is everyone should know their roles before getting onto the field, because that clarifies a lot of confusion during the match. Always support each other. If someone is obviously very confused, or doesn't know what to do, or freaking out or whatever, like, like, you guys will get to the end of the match. It will be okay. If someone doesn't know that there's a foul, tell them there's a foul. If someone doesn't know where the cargo is, tell them where it is. If someone's getting very flustered by the defender, give them some tips. Tell them to push them back, or tell them to move somewhere else. Just talk to each other, help each other out. It will be very fast paced. It will be a lot of emotion. It'll be very high tensions, but you guys will make it through. Be ready to adapt for literally any reason. I have a couple example reasons, but like literally anything can happen. An opponent robot can break, your alliance partner can break, you can break, a partner might need help with something, an opponent might need to be defended like right now. Like, there's a lot of reasons you might have to change your strategy like on a flip of a dime, and you need to be mentally prepared that even if you went into the match with a perfect plan of every second, exactly what you're going to do, just know that might get completely upended, and it's okay, and you will get through the end of the match, but be aware of this. Another thing to know is that someone should have some amount of authority of when something happens, telling people what to do and people not arguing about it. Because the more you argue about a call, the more you're not doing stuff on the field. And if something is completely bonkers, you can do a little bit of talking behind the glass. Like, I don't say never talk back. I don't say that. But definitely know that all the time you spend discussing and deliberating and bickering, you're not playing to your highest potential with your robot. Yes, you guys will have to figure out how this will look like, what this will look like. At least from my experience, the primary driver is usually very focused on just moving the robot, and if something breaks or goes on or whatever, they often just need to be told what to do because they're just very overwhelmed. But this isn't going to be everyone. But from my experience, it's best for the drive coach to say, your driver says, "Oh my goodness, my intake's broken, what I do?" And your driver responds with an immediate, "You need to go play defense now." And if she then changes her mind to, "No, let's have you shuttle cargo to the human player and they'll put it into your bucket for you," or whatever, like, then that's fine. But that's my own experience. Again, we can talk about some more in the Q&A. The last thing during the matches I want to highlight is, again, just everything that you can think that will go wrong will probably go wrong at some point. Be prepared. Have at least an idea if your robot's completely broken, what are you gonna do? And just just be prepared that things will change. All right. After the matches, first, like, just take a big breath. It's high stress. At least I found it very high stress. But very fun. I found it very fun, but stressful. Then consider, take a breath and consider, did you win? Did you lose? You can have some emotion behind the glass. I've had plenty of emotions behind the glass. And then, the volunteers are going to be very prompt about you removing your robot from the field in the driver's station for the alliance station. I've had to get reminded many times about, okay, stop like freaking out about whether you won or lost, like, move on. Like, other people have to take a match. And just remember that they're gonna be pretty prompt about that. And consider the state of your robot. Is it damaged? Did it break during the match? If it did break, is it a mechanical error? Is it an electrical error? Is it a programming error? Is it a battery error? Is it a battery error? You should consider what went wrong. You should consider, will this affect future matches? You might consider, can this be easily fixed? And you might not know the answer to that. As a driver, you might not know the answer to that. But, consider this in the back of your head and just know that a thorough diagnosis and hopefully a fix will happen in the pit. But, consider that. Because oftentimes your next partners will come up to you and say, wow, I'm in your next match, but you completely broke, what's going on? And if you don't have an answer for that, it's gonna be a little awkward. All right. And then regardless of if you won or if you lost, I think it's really beneficial to have a quick debrief with your drive team. This can be as you're walking back to the pit, while you're in the pit, before you go to the pit, just pull everyone aside and say, just talk, everyone just talk together. What went well, what didn't go well, consider strategy. Did you have a really good strategy? Was there, were there holes in your strategy that you could have planned for differently? How was the communication? Again, I think that's the biggest thing on the drive team is good communication. If something isn't working, talk about it. If something is working really well, reinforce that. Oh, Alana shouting the times out every 30 seconds is really helpful. Please keep doing that. Or the secondary driver telling the primary driver if a foul is happening is really helpful. Keep doing that. Or, if something isn't working, either they're doing too much of something or too little of something, talk about it. You're all trying your best, but if you don't clarify what you want from everyone, it's not going to work very well. Consider how you're driving just with more experience. The drivers are going to get more comfortable with the robot. The human players are going to get more comfortable. The drive coach is going to get more comfortable, doing the match. Consider, wow, I can actually do 2 more balls than I could at the beginning of the tournament. That might change our strategy. Or, consider, wow, I thought I was going to do 6 balls, and then my first match I only did 3. That's okay. But, talk about that. That might impact your next strategies. And then also talk about your partners and opponents a little bit. If your partners were really like on it the whole match and really good, you guys should be in agreement with that or discuss it. And, that might aid your picking later. Or, if you're with them another match or in a different tournament, that might help you out. Also your opponents, if someone's, if someone was, just dying on the field the whole time, again, that might be a good thing to consider. That happened. All right. And then also consider what could have gone better. Like all the stuff I talked about before, but also fouls is a big one. If you got 3 fouls in your match, you should have a little debrief about why that happened. How to not do that again. If you're confused about why you're getting a foul, please go to the question box. The head ref will talk to you and they'll usually be able to tell you what the foul was for. So please don't just say, oh, I got 4 fouls, but I don't know why, and leave it at that. Like, please discuss it. And fouls happen. You can't always avoid fouls, but it's good to debrief afterwards, because if you know the first time, you can avoid it the next time often. And also talk about time management. Again, this can be either well or bad. For example, if you went to go climb and then you climbed, you realized you had 30 seconds left in the match, that you could have been scoring that whole time, consider that. Or if you didn't quite make it to the climb, consider, wow, we needed another 10 seconds on that to make sure that worked. Same with kind of, shuttle time and whatever, consider, or even just calling out the time so the driver knows, what could have gone better in time management. And then I have a separate thing for defense. If to a debrief, if you were playing defense, consider, honestly consider, were you effective? Sometimes people play defense and it was like they weren't even there, that the other robot was still scoring so much. And consider, was that something you did? Is that something you could have done better? Is that the opponent was always in the safe zone, you couldn't do anything, or they just happened to move around defense really well? As a defending captain in 2019, some robots are just really hard to defend against, and some are a lot easier. And just consider if you were effective, and you might then know if you're against them next time, maybe it's better to defend the other robot even if they score less because you did nothing against the other one. If you were defended, so if you were trying to score and someone was defending you, consider how well you performed under that in spite. Consider if there's anything you could have done differently, either, which we'll talk a bit more about defense, but I guess consider, what went well or what didn't go well when you were actively being defended. So this doesn't need to be a huge, long, spiel, but maybe like a 5-minute, all right, guys, what went really well, what went horrendously wrong, what was in the middle. It's all a learning experience. You're gonna have matches that you just think everything went wrong, and it's probably because everything did go wrong, and that just happens. But you'll figure it out. Okay. These are some just highlights of what I think makes for a good drive team. Communication. I've talked about this before. I'm really hammering it in. Communication is very important for the drive team. This will take a lot of practice, honestly. Like when you're in the high stress, like every second counts atmosphere, like it takes some practice to keep your own emotions in check, to do everything you wanted to do in a match. But and it'll always start off rocky the first couple matches. The first couple matches are always overwhelming every season, and just know that they'll get better. But communication is very key. And again, if things aren't working, adjust. And not only for actually what you're doing in a match or strategy, but communication wise, if you want your drive coach to tell the times more frequently, so you have an idea of what's going on as the driver, please tell them to do that. If you want them to prioritize looking for fouls more than looking at the opponent robots, tell them to do that. Or when and what to point, when to point out cargo, or who to do that. Like, please just discuss that, because you're always going to have to make adjustments throughout the season. Some will be very natural, some will have to have some awkward conversations, but it'll work out. And again, the debriefs I think are really important for just making sure the communication is what you wanted it to be. Okay. My other highlight is robot knowledge. I encourage everyone on the drive team to be at least moderately knowledgeable of the robot's physical, like how it was built and everything, but you definitely need to be knowledgeable in their constraints. For example, you need to know how fast your robot can go. You need to know, if you climb, how long is it going to take for that climber to pull you up and get you those climb points. Like, you need to know things about the robot. You also need to know if something breaks, what is that affecting, and what does it look like when it breaks, and how do you continue to play when it does break. And so I think it's good to know some common mechanical errors, know if there's any sketchy electrical wiring on the robot to be watching, and know what makes a good battery versus a bad battery, and know some common programmatical errors. The technician can help you look for these and notify you these and fix these, but you need to know from behind the glass what it looks like when a program is, stalling out, or, shaking back and forth, or, a gear breaks a tooth and nothing's moving anymore, or you have a wire that got unplugged and now nothing's working. Like, you need to have some idea of what happened so that behind the glass you can change your strategy. And you can often see these same errors over and over again if you just watch the robot while it's being tested throughout the season. Of all the errors that happened when something broke in 2019, for example, probably I would say a majority of them we saw at least once on the practice field, or back in the shop, if not more than once. And a lot of them we saw multiple matches of the same error. And so definitely know what it looks like, and know what will and won't work when something happens, and how to adapt to that. And then again, physical limitations of your robot. I think that's good to know. Okay, we're getting to the tail end of this presentation. I know it's a bit long-winded. I have a lot to say, but we're getting close. Okay, defense. Defense is important. There's a lot of things to note when you are defending and when you are being defended. So we're going to start when you're defended. First, like, if you're driving the robot, you really need to stay calm. As a defender robot again, I've seen so many people from the other side of the glass completely freaking out, when a defender even approaches them, not even touching them, just completely freaking out. And like, just calm down. Like, maybe you won't score quite as much as you were hoping for that match, but if you are not calm, you won't perform. You won't perform well regardless. So like if you're being defended, maybe you will miss 2 of your balls. But if you're being defended and you're freaking out, you probably won't make any of your balls. And then remember cycle times. What I mean by this is if you go to pick up 2 balls and that took you 10 seconds, and you line up to shoot and that took you 5 seconds, and a robot's bumping you, rather than just shoot your balls off, because that will take 1 second to shoot, and if you miss, you're gonna have to restart that cycle over again. Take the extra 4 seconds to realign yourself, maybe push the defender back a little bit before you shoot, because if you miss those balls, you got to go pick them up and drive over and realign and shoot all over again. So just remember that when you're being defended, you can be a little slower because you're being defended. Like that's the point of defense, is that you're slowing down the other lines. But it's better to be slower and make your shots than to be fast and miss your shots, and now you got to pick them up and start all over again. Similarly, know like how big the goal is and how much tolerance you have while you're shooting. If you're pushed a foot backwards, can you still make it? If you're turned 5 degrees, can you still make it? What about 2 degrees? About 10 degrees? And I don't want you to do the mental math for this or anything. I just want you to hopefully have some driver practice and experience of, well, the goal is about this big, the ball is about this big. If I'm about this far back, I should be able to make it even though they bumped me a little bit, or I definitely need to reline after that. Just consider all this. If you're being defended and it's really messing with you, like you are just missing all of your shots, if your robot's built so that you can do quote batter shots, which is you drive right up to the hub and shoot from there, that's a lot harder to defend because they can't push you around as easily because you're driving into a wall. The best they can do is maybe turn you. And even then, because you're so close, that turn won't do as much. So consider those if your robot can physically do it, and if you're really struggling while you're being defended. And then my last note is don't be afraid to push back. Sometimes robots, sometimes you need to scare the defender, and sometimes they'll just run away. If you're being defended and it's really messing with you and you just can't get your shot down, pause, push them to the other side of the field, come back, and you might be able to shoot before they come back, if they come back at all. So don't be afraid to, push them back a little bit. This is a contact sport. If you are the one defending, consider your own drivetrain and consider the drivetrain of whoever you're defending. If the person you're defending has Mechanism drive or Omni drive, or if they just have 4 sims in general, they're going to be a lot easier to push around than someone who has traction or pneumatic wheels or like a 6 sim. If you don't know what these mean, we can discuss them in the Q&A and I can get some pictures up. But definitely know what the different wheel types look like and how the drivetrains operate. The only real drivetrain I didn't listen here is Swerve, and some swerves are really easy to push around and some aren't. That's really going to depend on who made the swerve. But for the most part, these rules will stand. Also consider weight differences. In 2019, we were a 90-pound robot. We were, 30 pounds lighter than everyone else, and we needed very different tactics. If you ever watch our matches, while we do push robots, we do a lot of turning robots. We'll push them at the corner and twist them and turn them, and then they still can't make their shot, but it requires a lot more force than just pushing them sideways or backwards or forwards, full front on. So consider that. Or if they're a lot lighter, like you'll be able to find that you can push them all the way across the field and they won't be able to do anything about it. So consider that in your tactics. Once again, please protect your mechanisms. Please bring everything inside your frame perimeter. Not only do you not want to hit other people in their frame perimeter, because that's fouls and tech fouls, but you want to protect your mechanism so you're not broken the next match. And then please watch for pinning fouls. The pins I can demonstrate for you on Saturday, but the ref will wave their arm in 5 counts, and that is your 5 seconds for your pin. And if you back up 6 feet, they will continue to count their arm, but they will have mentally set a new timer to count for 3 seconds. Usually if the defender drives back up to you or drives away or whatever, this will sometimes just get nulled. And if you are safe, they will do a nice safe signal. And then your pin is completely over. You can pin them again and they'll keep counting, but it won't be a foul. If you pin too long, or back up and then back into them and then come back into them again without giving them their 3 seconds, they will give you a foul. So be watching for that. And if you're getting a lot of fouls, talk to each other, talk to me, talk to the refs, consider what you can do differently. Okay. Lastly, we have game evolution. So game strategy is going to evolve, and it won't always be fast. It won't always be noticeable. But again, you should never really have one strategy that always works. That's usually not accurate. Always consider your partners, always consider who you're against, but also be watching the tournament. So again, sometimes, there'll be a lot of defenders, sometimes there'll be a little bit, sometimes people will really go for the rank points, sometimes people won't. And again, we don't really know how the game's going to evolve. So for all we know, some big bang strategy will come out and you're going to have to adapt to that. So always consider that. And then also know that your robot's going to adapt too. In between tournaments or possibly even inside a tournament, at a tournament, your robot can break, or your team might add a new mechanism. Between tournaments, your mechanisms will often be added on or improved or modified. The controls might change. If you don't want them to change, again, please talk to programming or vice versa. And your robot robustness might change too, which might change how much you can do defense or how you can do defense. So your strategies and how you drive should evolve and mirror to how your robot's adapting and evolving. And then finally, other team robots will also adapt, but this will usually be just between tournaments. And then do consider this when preparing for tournaments and making match strategy, making pick lists. If you saw everyone at Clackamas, but then it's, if you saw a bunch of people at Clackamas that are playing at Oregon State Fairgrounds, and that's like a 3-week gap, they might be different. And so while it's a good baseline, definitely don't expect that they're the exact same. You definitely have to watch and see if they changed anything. Alrighty, that is my drive team presentation. I hope that you watched the strategy presentation before this, because I feel like they mesh together well. If you're on the drive team, I wish you all luck. I found being on the drive team to be very fun and like my favorite part of robotics. So I wish you guys luck. I hope you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, something's gone wrong, and we can discuss about it. If you have questions, please ask me when I'm there on Saturday. I should be there most of the day, but we will have a Q&A session. If you have any questions later, either throughout the build season or at a tournament or preparing for a tournament, please add me on Discord. I'm happy to talk to you, give you some feedback, answer your question, chat, I don't know. Alrighty, I will see you guys all on Saturday. Good luck. Robots don't quit.